Now, you know I'm a huge fan of the Sweet Stamp letter sets, and last Friday they released 4 new sets. There were 2 smaller sets and 2 larger sets, and I really wanted to show you them. So I thought it would be really fun to add them all onto a cake. So this week I'm going to be showing you how you can create this really cute night sky cake with this sleeping moon on the top. Now, if you do like any of the letter sets, Sweet Stamp have kind of given me a 10% off discount code for you to use across their whole website. All you have to do is enter Cakes by Linz at the checkout, and I will put all the details in the description below. Okay, let's get started. So for this cake, I want to cover this in a light blue to look like the sky. Now I'm actually using the baby blue by the Sugar Paste. Now this is quite a firm fondant when you get it out of the packet, so I do like to pop it in the microwave on defrost just for 5 seconds, and this really helps just soften it slightly so that I can knead it ready to cover my cake. So I'm just rolling this out and I'm covering a 5-inch cake. Now this one is 5 inches across and 5 inches in height. I'm then going in, trimming off any excess and using my paddle smoothers to smooth around the sides. I can then use these smoothers and also my flexi smoothers along that top edge to give me a nice sharp finish. Now I will put a link to a more detailed video showing how I cover my cakes in fondant, and I'll put a link to this on the screen and in the description below to help you get to this stage. So on the front of my cake, I want to add a message, and to do this I'm going to use 2 of the new Sweet Stamp letter sets, and I've actually got the 2 smaller letter sets. So these are perfect for adding messages onto cakes, but also to use on cupcake toppers. So the first one is this new Trendy set, and I am so in love with this set. It is a super modern set, and for this I'm going to take out Dream Big. So I've just got a piece of blue tack, or you can use a piece of fondant. So we've got the D and the R. Now the R is actually in the style of a joined up R, and I've then got the E, the A and the M. Now these letter sets come with uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and we've also got some punctuation. So there we've got the Dream Big. Now underneath this I'm going to add a little one. So for this I'm using the new Timeless letter set, and I'm going to do all of this in capital letters. You then want to use the guide that comes with the pickup pad just to lay these out. Now, with duplicate letters, you just want to leave enough space to be able to add those in. Now, you may be wondering why I've dropped the little one this low. It's because I'm actually going to do them separate. So I'm going to add the Dream Big and then the little one, as I want the tail of the G to come over the top of the 1. I'm going to take my pickup pad and pick up the Dream Big. So that turns it into a stamp for onto my cake. And I'm going to put this to one side, but make sure that I don't move where my letters are spaced. Now I'm going to use one of my smoothing paddles just on the top so that I can hold the cake still. I can then line up my stamps. So we've got the Dream Big. You then want to rock from one side to the other, pushing those letters in. Now, because I want to paint these ones, I don't want to push too deep. So you just want to push it deep enough that you emboss the letters so you've got something to paint. Now, if any of those letters haven't pushed in deep enough, you can just go in by hand, just pushing the odd one in just until you're happy with how that's looking. You then want to peel those letters from your pad and just pick up the sentence that we're going to have underneath. So little one. Now I've made sure to put the capital L and the capital E at each of the ends, just so I can work out where this is going to go. I can then fill in those duplicate letters. For painting in my letters, I'm going to be using some luster dust mixed with some dipping solution to create an edible paint. I've got this deep sea blue, which I'm going to use for Dream Big, and also a gunmetal grey for the line underneath. Now I'm using luster dust, which is going to give a little bit of a sparkle, but you can also use gel colours or ready mixed edible paints. And if I add in some dipping solution, or you can use some rejuvenating spirit or even some alcohol, just mix that through, and I'm going to do the same with the gunmetal grey. And these are just the Luster Dust by Sweet Sticks. Now to paint this on my cake, I've just got a really fine paintbrush, and this is one by Sweet Stamp. So there we have Dream Big Little One. Okay, so now we've got the start of our cake. The next thing to do is create the board that the cake is going to go on. Now I've shown you the 2 new smaller letter sets from Sweet Stamp, so I thought it would be really fun to use the 2 new larger sets to add some text onto the board. The first one that we've got is this green set, which is called Glow, and this one just has some really fun simple letters which are perfect for any themed cake. So on this one, again, I'm just taking some blue tack to remove my letters, and I'm going to use the word baby. So I'm going to be putting Baby Lucy. Now you can add any text you like onto the board, and just like with the smaller letter sets, you get the uppercase, the lowercase, and also numbers. Okay, so the final letter set that I'm going to be using is this new one, which is called Sweetie. Now, if I take out one of the capital letters, you can see that these are quite fancy calligraphy style letters. So I'm just going to take out the name Lucy. I'm now going to cover my cake board. So I've just got an 8-inch drum board, and this one just measures 1 centimetre in height. I'm going to cover this with some white fondant. So I'm just rolling this out large enough to cover my board, applying a small amount of water to the surface just so I can stick that down. I can then smooth that out and trim off any excess before adding a white ribbon around the edge. I then want to lay out my letters, so you could use the guide that comes with the pickup pad to lay them out, but I want to make sure that they're not going to be too close to my cake. So I've got a 5-inch acrylic disc, roughly the same size as my cake, or if you've got a 5-inch cake board, or you could even use the tin that you baked the cake in. So I'm going to place this on my board, just slightly off center, so I know that I've got this space around the front. I'm then going to lay out my text. I'm just lightly placing it, so I don't want to push it in yet until I'm happy with the positioning. I'm then going to remove that acrylic disc, and I'm going to take my pickup pad, place this over the top, and just push those letters in. Just making sure that I'm going evenly over all of those letters. And I can then lift that up, and we've got our embossed words. Now on my cake, I use the technique of painting inside my letters, so I thought for these ones I would show you how to use the perfect pour bottles. So I've got this little bottle, a little funnel, and I'm going to be using some of the metallic luster dust by Sweet Sticks in the ocean blue. So this is a light blue colour to match the colour of the main part of my cake. Now, just as I did when I created the paint for the front of my cake, I've got some of that luster dust, and I'm going to mix in some dipping solution and just mix that through, create an edible paint. But instead of using this with a brush, I'm going to pour this into my bottle. I can then very carefully just bring the bottle over the top of my letters, just allowing some of that liquid to drip into the embossed shapes. I'm going to use the tip of the bottle just to push that colour around and just fill the spaces. But this is a great way to add colour to your letters, especially if you find painting them slightly tricky. And you just want to tilt your bottle up as you move it from letter to letter. So I'm just flooding those letters, just guiding the paint around with the tip of my bottle. Now, don't forget that you can use my discount code Cakes by Linz at the checkout on the Sweet Stamp website to get 10% off any of the Sweet Stamp products. And I will leave all the details in the description below. So there we've got the letters on our board, and I'm going to leave this until it's completely dry. The next thing I'm going to do is create a cute little moon to go on the top of the cake. So for this, I'm going to be using some grey fondant. Now, I started with white, and I've just added a small amount of of black food gel just to give me this light grey colour. Now I'm going to be attaching this onto one of the small round blank canvases by Sweet Stamp. So this will allow me to push it into my cake. If you don't have one of these, that's absolutely fine. You could cut out your moon shape and use a bamboo skewer, and once that fondant has set, attach it into your cake. I've also got a round cookie cutter, which is a similar size to my blank canvas. Some edible tints, I've got some shadow grey, some black and some dusky pink. Now to add texture, I'm going to be using my ball tool. So I've got one with a large and a small end. And if you wanted to add in some smaller texture, I've also got the texture tools by Sweet Stamp. I've then got a scrunched up piece of tin foil and also a small amount of cling film or plastic wrap, along with a small paintbrush and lastly a small amount of edible paint. So this is just a little bit of black food gel which I've mixed with some white edible paint just so I can paint on some eyes. So the first thing I'm going to do is create the shape for my moon. So I'm going to roll out my grey fondant until it's a thickness of around 1 centimetre. I'm then going to take my piece of cling film and place this over the top. Then when I use my cookie cutter to push out that shape, we end up with these rounded edges. I'm just going to go in and soften those a little bit more just to give us that round shape for our moon. I can then stick this onto my blank canvas. Now if you find that it doesn't stick very well, you can add a small amount of water or edible glue. I then want to go in and add some detail to make it look a little bit more like a moon. So I'm going to start with my tin foil and I've just scrunched up a square. I'm going to push this just into one side. I'm then going to take my ball tool. So first of all, I've got the small end. I'm just adding in some little craters and add some larger ones with the other end. I've then got one of the really tiny balls from the texture toolkit and I'm going to do exactly the same. So just adding in little dips of different sizes, just giving the appearance of the surface of the moon. I've then got a small amount of edible tint. So I've got some shadow grey and some black. So I'm going to start with the shadow grey and just on the sides, just add in a little bit of shadow. And we can create a darker grey just by mixing some of that black. Now I want to add some sleeping eyes and some rosy cheeks to these. So I'm just using one of those really tiny texture tools just so I can draw in where I want my eyes to go. So I've got a little guide when I paint them. I've then got my fine liner brush and some of that dark grey, and I've gone for a grey just so it's a little bit more subtle than black. So I'm adding in my sleeping eyes and just popping some eyelashes in. You then want to take some dusky pink on a little brush and I'm going to add in some rosy cheeks. So there we've got our little sleeping moon. Now that my board is dry, I'm going to transfer over my cake. So now that my cake is in place, I want to add some clouds around the bottom. So I'm going to start just by measuring the circumference of my cake. So I get about 43.5 centimeters. So I'm going to start with some white fondant. This is where my text is on my cake. I don't want the clouds to be any higher than around 4 centimeters. So once that's around 2 to 3 millimeters in thickness, I'm just going to go over the top and smooth that down. I can then trim off one side. Okay, so I've brought it onto my blue non-slip mat just so you can see it a little bit easier. And I want my clouds to look like cute, fluffy clouds. So I'm going to cut them out by freehand. But first of all, you can just use a Dresden tool just to work out where they're going to go and what they're going to look like. So I'm just putting in semicircles of different sizes. So once you're happy with that, I'm going to go in just with my craft knife, just cutting out the cloud design. I'm just going in with my finger just over the top, just softening that top edge. And if there are any of the points that just need cleaning up, I'm then going to roll the clouds just to make it easier to transfer it onto my cake board and just stand that up. So I'm going to apply some edible glue around the bottom of my cake. And then starting at the back, I can start to unravel my clouds. And you can go in with a smoothing tool or with your flexi smoother just to make sure that that's all pushed down. And at the back, I'm just trimming off any overhang and just joining those together. I then want to add in my little sleeping moon to the top of my cake. The last thing that I want to do is add some stars onto my cake to make it look a little bit more like the sky. Now, you could use plunger cutters and cut some stars out of fondant. I've actually got these 2 tubs of sprinkles, and these are Christmas sprinkles. So I've gone through those and just taken out some of the stars so that I can use these on the cake. So I've got a little brush and I'm gonna just apply some edible glue and just pick up some of those stars and just stick them into place. So here we have the finished cake, which looks like this night sky. We've got stars all over the cake. We've got this sleeping moon on the top and these clouds around the bottom. Now onto the cake, I've added the 4 sweet stamp letter sets. So we've got the text on the front and the text on the board. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and will be able to use some of these techniques on your own cakes. If you have enjoyed the video, as always, don't forget to give it a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this and you haven't already, then don't forget to subscribe to the Cakes by Ninja YouTube channel. So until next time.